Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Professor Cihan Çobanoğlu. Welcome to Virscend University's Speaker Series. Today we have a distinguished guest, but before I introduce our guest, I would like to tell you a little bit about Virscend University. Virscend University is founded in 2016 and it is located in Irvine, California. We currently offer MBA degree and also a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. This speaker series is part of our efforts to bring industry leaders, experts with our students, and also our community. Today, I have a special guest with me, Dr. Regina Lark. I would like to welcome her to the stage. Dr. Lark, welcome.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here
Wonderful.
with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and sharing your expertise with our students and our community members here as well. So Dr. Lark is going to introduce herself as part of her presentation. So I'm going to leave the floor to her. And then I would like to ask all of you who are watching online, please, as she presents her wonderful topic, write your questions. As the questions come, I'm going to bring them up. She prefers interactive, but if you want to wait until she's done, that's perfectly fine too. And then we'll do that. Dr. Lark, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's good to be here. I am beaming in from Long Beach, California, and I met Dr. Jihan at a networking event a couple of months ago. It was an event for professionals and had to do with human resource professionals. And we just had a great conversation. I learned about Virscend, and I said, I wonder if your students would benefit from a talk on the neuroscience of brain clutter. And he says, yes. So here we are. I know it's not typically a topic that is presented in an MBA program. Certainly was not in my PhD program. And yet the rub of it is we have stuff coming into our lives all day, every day, from the moment we're born till well after we're gone. Because if nobody manages the flow of mail coming in after we're deceased, there's still going to be paper. So I'm here to talk about clutter, and clutter is broadly defined. I don't know if anybody on this call right now would identify as somebody with clutter. It can be benign. It could be something that doesn't bother you in the least, or it could be a type of clutter that you are so tired of not being able to find your keys or your notebook or the notes that you took in your last class, because maybe you use a lot of different platforms to take notes. So there's a science to clutter, and that's why I feel it's good to have this kind of conversation at the college and university level, because again, we live in a culture that we're going to just be chronically having stuff coming into our lives. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So I finished a PhD in women's history from the University of Southern California. And I am, in my work in women's history, I wrote a body of work that identified me as a subject matter expert on marriages between Japanese women and American GIs who met and married during the US occupation of Japan. And I had spent a good chunk of my adult life in higher education. And my last job was at UCLA. And I was a director of programs at the UCLA at Extension. And the summer of '08, I went to Jerusalem to visit a very good friend of mine. And while I was there, I said, Nadra, I don't want to be a tourist today. How about if I do your kitchen? And she's like, Habibi, what does that mean? And I said, Nadra, your girls are in their 30s. You got sippy cups in the cupboard. Just let me do what I do. So I decluttered and organized her kitchen because I'm wired this way. And in fact, in my family of origin, there are 6 of us. 4 of us are like me and 2 of us need us. So I'm hardwired in my brain to do things in an orderly and in a productive and a planned and sequential way. That's just that's what my brain is about. When I got back from my trip to Jerusalem, I learned that my unit at UCLA Extension was being dismantled and my position was effectively eliminated. And in 7 days, I didn't have a job. It was the summer of '08. The recession had just begun. That particular recession had just begun. And 2 months into my layoff, I told Ronnie, my roomie, I'm going to organize until something better comes along. And we looked up organizers in our zip code. And we found Catherine Macy, PhD in mechanical engineering, has been doing this organizing work for a couple of years. My roommate knew her, called her up, said, my roommate, we went over there for dinner. On the way to dinner, I looked down an alley and I said, Ronnie, if I'm going to have a business, it probably should start with the letter A. Someday we're going to get back to the yellow pages. I looked down an alley and I said, how about a clear path? Sounded good. Met Catherine. She ended up hiring me on 2 jobs to declutter and organize a couple of garages. Well, you could have knocked me over with a feather when I learned that this is work that people will pay you to do. So I was off and running. And on October 1st, I started my 18th year in business. A Clear Path is a big company that covers Los Angeles and Orange County. And we do the gratifying work of decluttering and organizing big and small spaces. But on this journey of having this business, a couple of things happened. And one comes from working with clients that had a type of clutter that I just was not familiar with. And one house I went into, there were paper piles everywhere. And it looked like every piece of paper that had entered her home. And she hired me to help her with her paper piles. And so one day we did the paper piles. We had a great appointment and she says, that was fun. Let's do it again. Can you come back next week? And I said, sure. And she goes, give me some homework. And I gave her some homework. I said, here, work on this pile. But when I went back the next week, I recognized not only was that pile not worked on, but there were more piles and that pile had actually gotten higher. And I was curious about that. You know, you don't label or judge that. You just go, wow, that is so interesting. And within that same first few clients that I'm working with, I was also brought in to to work with a woman whose mom had passed, and all of her mom's furniture, artifacts, everything, the hairbrush, all kinds of things had gone to this woman's home. She just brought it all in. She didn't know how to make a decision about how to let it go. So she just moved it in on with her. And so she called me to help her. And within 20 minutes of being with her, she holds up a very benign looking eyeglass case. Like it had some embroidery on it. It certainly was something you could buy at CVS. And she holds it up and she said, should I let this go? And I said, sure. And when I was driving home, I thought she barely knew me and it felt like she was asking me permission to let this go. Well, I'm talking to my organizing clients about my observations in organizing land, and they led me to what's called the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. You knew you were going to get to the neuroscience of clutter at some point. And at the Institute for Challenging Disorganization, it's where mental health professionals meet professional organizers. And there's all kinds of great coursework and dialogue and information being shared across these spectrums. And I availed myself to a lot of coursework and training and certification to work with what we call in our industry, folks with brain-based conditions. So I became a subject matter expert on everything from the hoarding disorder. In fact, I'm an expert witness on hoarding here in Los Angeles County. And I come to understand this concept of what we call chronic disorganization. And chronic disorganization is brought to you by a really lousy hard wiring of parts of our brain that we call the executive function. Next slide, please. So the executive function, step back a little bit. And 50 to 100,000 years ago, I just learned it's about 100,000 years ago, we get cognition. So 100,000 years ago, Maya the cave woman comes out of the cave and she sees a soothing body of water. She has neither language nor cognition. She doesn't know what that is, but it looks good. And her fight or flight brain just says, dive in. Maya could come out of the cave and one day, and she doesn't see a soothing body of water. She sees a big beast with big tusks, and she has neither language or cognition, but that part of her brain, the amygdala, the lizard brain, is saying, leave, get the hell out. Maya flees. Well, that part of our brain is still alive and well, this anterior cingulate cortex. But the brain matter that we deal with today, what got you on this call on time today, right? A lot of variables, the time, the date, the subject matter is one thing. What does your calendar look like? Is this something that you could put into your calendar? Do you have all your distractions turned off so you can hear every single pearl that I'm going to drop? So there's a lot in our brains that got us to this call, and that's the executive functions, and it's the prefrontal cortex. It's the gray matter of our brain. And I would love the next slide, please. So the executive function part of our brain is really, really useful for doing things on task and on time. It allows us to solve problems. It allows us to look into the future. Folks who have an executive function that is firing on all pistons, they can feel time. They can look at their calendar and plan a vacation for July of next year because they're able to they have a really strong sense of their relationship with time. Our executive function gets us to hold, pardon me, useful information. We monitor and adjust our performance. We're able to dodge and be flexible. Our behaviors, we have impulse control. We can start and stay on tasks. When my executive functions are firing on all pistons, my to-do list becomes to done. And no matter who you are listening to this presentation, if you're a student, chances are you are also holding down a job where you're earning wages. If you're a faculty member or an administrator, certainly you also are responsible for all kinds of things at home that you're not being paid for, that you have to keep track of. So our executive function is crucial both in the C-suite, in the executive level, and in the management of the household. The same brain skills that are needed to run an industry are the exact same brain skills needed to run a household. So our executive function allows us to be on task, on time, to do things in planned and prioritized and organized ways. We can also manage our relationship to our emotions. And our emotional regulation is significant when it comes to our executive functions, because chances are, if we have emotional regulation, we probably don't have a house filled of things that we love. We have stuff that we love. We have stuff that is useful. We have stuff that we can look at and go, I know I'm never going to use that again, so I'm going to go put it into the bag that holds all the donations that I send out all the time. And I'm going to plan my donation run when that bag gets full. And when that bag is full, I'm going to put it in my car on the day that I know that I'm going by the Goodwill. That's what executive functioning is. So the executive function part of our brain allows us to do things in the manner that we want them done, in the timeliness, in the timely way that we want them to be done. I will take the next slide, please. Any questions coming to you right now? I'm happy to, is there anybody on this call, Dr. Jihan?
Yes. There is no question yet, Dr. Lark. When there is, I will come and bring it up. No
I feel
problem.
like I'm talking to myself. Okay.
No, no, absolutely. And there is lots of people are watching as we live stream this in LinkedIn and YouTube.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
So so I've got this professional organizing business, and what that means is that somebody calls me up and they're like, I can't take the clutter anymore. I've got to do something. And everything I've done for myself, I have failed myself miserably. And a lot of folks don't really understand the impact of our brain and our relationships to clutter, to stuff, to ourselves. And in fact, I'm working on the second edition of one of my books. And the book is called Emotional Labor, Why a Woman's Work is Never Done and What to Do About It. And the second edition is going to have a lot more information about the executive function part of the brain. Because the executive function part of the brain contributes, if it's not working well, it's going to contribute greatly to clutter. So when people call me with, I got to do something about this, I walk into homes and I see a lot of stuff around me, and I quickly assess a few things. One, this person has a lousy relationship with time. Two, this person has a lousy relationship with their emotions. They don't know if they need it someday. They feel like, oh, I can't do this. I'm so lazy. I don't believe in lazy. I always think there's a deeper underlying reason why we don't want to do stuff. It's not in my skill set. It's not, I don't know how long it's going to take me, so I'm not even going to try. If I let this go, what are people going to think of me? Who am I without this? So there's emotional dysregulation when it comes to our clutter. And I see this all the time. When somebody comes in, I can't let go of these books. I love books. I know I'm going to read them all one day, or I've read them and I know I'm going to read it again. I love them. And then the space where the books are it's double and triple stacked. I mean, it's a lot of books. I am not able to let this go because it's a pillow that my grandmother embroidered. And how can I do that? And I just love it. And my grandmother would roll over in her grave if she knew that I gave this away. So we attach a lot of emotional weight to the stuff all around us. When I started this work, and I used to hear a lot, I will do it someday, I may need it someday, I don't have time. I hear all kinds of reasons why people are holding on to stuff. I don't have time to let it go. And what I've noticed is that typically, this is not a hard science, but typically we hold on to things for one of two reasons. If there's a lot of stuff in our lives, there's one of two reasons that we're holding on to it. So one reason is we're holding on to that which we think we may need someday. And someday is all the way out there in the future, or it could be tomorrow, but we're holding on to it for someday. And we don't ask, well, what does someday have to look like in order for me to let this go or use it? We don't ask that question. We also don't ask, if I don't have this any longer and someday arrives, what catastrophe is going to befall me? We don't ask ourselves. We just know something bad's going to happen. We don't know what it's going to be, but we know if someday comes and I don't have this, game over. Instead of asking, if someday comes and I don't have this, is there something in here that I can substitute? Can I borrow? Is the dollar amount to replace it low enough that I can repurchase it? And we ask ourselves these questions because if we're thinking about letting go, if we have too much clutter, we've got to come up with some criteria in order for the letting go to happen. People don't call me in because they're perfectly in love and satisfied with their homes and their desks and their workspaces. They call me in because they have a problem with all of that. So in order to ameliorate part of that problem, we got to come up with these questions. So we're holding on to the future, that which we think we may need someday. We're also holding on to the past, our grandmother's embroidered pillows, bowling trophies, lots of copies of our dissertation drafts, lots of copies of drafts of other things. We have all kinds of paper that we're holding on to, things that came into our life from the past. It could be yesterday, it could be 10 years ago. But we've come into an understanding that there's value here. There's value here, somewhere back here. And I might as well keep it. Whoever gave it to me said it has value. Whatever I read, I hear this has value. So we hold on to the stuff from the past, not asking, if this is not in my life anymore, who would I be without it? I'll give you a perfect example from my own life. I had, at one point, I had a 5 bookcases filled, floor to ceiling, filled with books that I was using to work on my dissertation and to teach. I was teaching history and women's studies at 4 different colleges and universities in Southern California. I was an adjunct professor, a freeway flyer. And all of the books had meaning to me, and they were all brought in for specific reasons, to dissertate and to teach. And there came a time, thankfully, when the dissertation had completed and I moved from being an adjunct professor to being an academic administrator. So essentially, the books had served their purpose and it was time for them to go. But no, here's what I loved about the books. When I was a graduate student and one of the students needed a book and they didn't want to go to interlibrary loan, they'd say, Regina, do you have it? And I go, yes, I do. It was in my book bag and on campus the next day. Or I love the fact that anybody who came home to my home office and they saw my magnificent library, they would walk in there and I just assumed, they said, wow, there's a smart person here. Did you read all of those? So I liked how the books made an identity for me. I love that. I also like being a resource to other students. Well, there came a time well past my finishing my graduate work and teaching, I was moving and I had to dismantle that home office. I was moving into a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. And I wasn't doing this work quite yet, but I knew 2 things about me. One, I do not like being inconvenienced. So moving into a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, taking 5 floor-to-ceiling bookcases over there with me, I would have been inconvenienced. I could tell you that right now. The other thing I know about myself is I will never pay for external storage. So what's a girl to do? And I remember standing in front of that bookcase, one of the bookcases, and I said, okay, Regina, you don't have these books anymore. Who are you? And I really had to come to Regina meeting. It's like, well, you're still smart. Well, no one's going to take your degrees away from you, nor all of those years of experience. But the thing that was catching me is I still loved being a resource. And so I vowed to learn another way to be a resource. And I put an ad on Craigslist and a smart young grad student came by. She paid me $100. I filled her car till the tires were flat. I could still hear the carriage leave the driveway of the car. And I waved this promising young scholar off with the best library, kept 5 books, still have them. But my single bookcase here now, the top shelf are books written by my friends, plus the 5 books that I kept from my original purge. Have I looked at any of them? No. The second shelf are books by other friends, and then some of my copies. And the third shelf is books that I have for my current work in revising my emotional labor book. All that to say is that change can happen. Yes, Dr. Jihan.
We have 2 questions, Dr. Lark. That might be something that you will cover later, but one of our audience members said, how do we fix this?
Got it.
Okay, and then the next question, maybe you can combine them if you want. Here is the question. Can you talk about the heart's reaction to decluttering? How can we best navigate the real feelings of guilt? So those are the two questions that came. You asked me to bring them up, so I brought
Thank
them
you.
up.
Perfect. Thank you. Those are great. Those are good because you're really thinking about yourselves and what you've tried in the past. Okay, we can go to another slide, please. So there's this emotional weight. We have negative scripts. We have unfinished goals. We have all of this stuff before us. Hang on, I'm okay, move on. You can go ahead. I want to get to some solutions. Okay. Strategies. All right. So on the surface, just for the visual, I want you to think, I want you to use these few examples to look. You want to look at your stuff differently. You want to be able to see what you have. So clear bins, open shelves, don't have deep drawers. You want it visible. You want it accessible. But I want to get on to the two. We can move on. So there are emotional and cognitive strategies to doing this differently. When you're looking around the space and all the stuff, develop a dialogue about what it is to you. What are these things? Work out, create a list of what do you need to have in your life to thrive? What do you absolutely need in your life? What are the things you want to have in your life versus the desire? Like, see if you can break these apart, need versus want versus desire. What I need, I'm a visual person. I like the aesthetic. So what I need is to have things hanging on my wall. Each thing has a very particular meaning for me. If stuff is going to take space in my life, my stuff doesn't pay my mortgage. My stuff doesn't really care how I live. My stuff is perfectly fine where it is. Doesn't ask to be moved. What I want to have around me are the things that make me feel like I'm thriving. Nothing gets to come through my front door unless it absolutely pleases me aesthetically, whether it's a blouse or an object. But no matter what it is, it has to go to a home in my home. Nothing gets to come in here and I just lay it down and I'll deal with it later. I'm disciplined that way. And I don't know if you have to be disciplined, but I do know what's going to help starting to dismantle the strength of the frustration of all of this is to work on lessening its power on you, seeing that it doesn't care about you. I want you to care more about your stuff. I want you to care more about your space and how you want to live and less about what's going to happen to your stuff. People say, I want to wait until I give it to the right person. Make yourself the right person. Care less about who's going to get it and more about letting it go. Put yourself first. Understand more, become more known to yourself. Why are you holding on to particular things? There's no right or wrong answer, but you want to get close to understanding how to break free from some of these relationships, because all of it is relationships. It's our relationships to our stuff and our relationships to our space. And not to put too fine a point on it, but our relationship to ourselves in relationship to all of that. You know, what is our perspective about books? For me, books were written to be read. So I wanted my library to get its due. The books were written to be read. So much of this is really breaking the chain of the thinking that I think is the death knell of any company. This is the way we've always done it. We've got to think differently about our stuff and our relationship to it. I mean, I like stuff. I mean, we're here I live in a 1-bedroom condo. I have stuff, but all of my stuff is accessible and I put it back just as easily. Come up with an understanding. What does being organized mean to you? Not what you see on Instagram, stay away from all of that because it's intimidating. And if you are chronically disorganized because of brain-based conditions, none of those folks address that stuff. You may have executive function challenges that are contributing to the clutter. Become more known to yourself about that. When I think of the sentimental parts of life, the things that come into our life that make us go, oh, I love that. I love the woman who brought that into my life. That is a value that we have placed on things, or a value that someone said. It's like grandma's embroidered pillow, but it was grandma's. That word right there gives it sentimentality. I've had clients say, but this was my mother's hairbrush. It's like, well, everyone had a hairbrush. So let's drill down, and what is it about this hairbrush? Well, you're right. Or, well, I just have this memory of her brushing her long, beautiful blonde hair when I was a child. And it's like, then let's keep the brush, and we're going to put the brush here because I'm sure you're going to want to come across it again. So it's getting more known to yourself about your relationships to these things. Need versus want versus desire. We're going to meet our basic needs. What are those? And again, what are our basic needs? Are our basic needs 12 packs of Costco paper towels? Is that a basic need? Even if we only have room for 3-pack, but we got such a deal because we bought more? Put a price tag on your emotional well-being when you're buying from the big grocery stores. We don't live in the Adirondacks, most of us at any rate, especially on this call. I would imagine none of you live very far from any store. So think differently about what you need to have on hand. I just have one extra of everything I use regularly: face cream, shampoo, toilet paper, 1 pack of toilet paper. But I always have just one because I don't like being inconvenienced, as you know. So once I use something, I go into the cupboard and get the next one, and then I put on my list to get that replaced. Does that help? Those questions help? Did I help you?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Why don't we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So how to get started. I believe that most people with a lot of clutter, they do have a lousy relationship with time. And a lot of that is not knowing there's several components to time. One is being able to see way out in the future. One is being able to notice the passage of time. One is being able to know how much time something's going to take me to wash the dishes in the sink. Folks with a lousy relationship with time typically don't know how long it's going to take them to wash dishes, or they've got to do laundry. Laundry is one word to describe 5 processes: sort, wash, dry, fold, put away. Each process has a time value. If you have a lousy relationship with time, chances are you've kept clothes in the dryer for a couple of days. So to get started on trying to fix this, on working toward a different way of having different relationship, a relationship with time, stuff, space, ourselves. So shifting our relationship with time can go like this. Write out on a piece of paper or whatever, Monday through Sunday, and write down in each day the things that you do pretty regularly: grocery shop, laundry, drive to and from the campus, whatever, stuff that you do pretty regularly. Go to the gym, play with your kids, just put it in the calendar, those things. And then make a column, and then without very much thought, write down how much time you think it's going to take you to do each thing. Don't think about it, just write down a number. Takes me 10 minutes to go to Vons, whatever it is. Grocery shopping, 45 minutes. Anything. Then time yourself. Start looking at the task, looking what you put, set the timer, and go to the grocery store. You're going to start developing a different relationship with time. You're going to see that you're way off the mark or you're right on the mark. You're going to see that you highballed or lowballed. I would pick to do this in a kind of a quick and dirty way. You don't have to go to the grocery store. Wait, stop. I just got ahead of myself. Okay, so start timing yourself. Look at the projects. Boom, put that over here. The other thing I want you to do is that's going to help. Trust me. The next thing I want you to do is to make a list of all the things you want to declutter. I don't care what it is. If you have 5 junk drawers, put junk drawer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The garage, under the bed, above the closet, all the areas that want to declutter. My briefcase, whatever it is, the trunk of my car. And then I want you to pick one thing, something easy and benign that you probably aren't going to have a whole lot of emotion around. And it could be quick. I always choose the junk drawer. So pick a junk drawer and write down next to junk drawer 1 how much time you think it's going to take to declutter the junk drawer. Give it 10 minutes. Give it 20 minutes. I don't care what you give it. Give it some time. Then you're going to put junk drawer declutter project on your calendar. See, we're going to keep increasing the likelihood of success here. So we put it on the calendar. And then on that day, it's going to be Friday morning at 9 a.m. On that day, you get in front of the junk drawer, and, just an aside, for every declutter project, you're going to need some supplies, like a bin to put clothes to go to the recycle place or to the Goodwill, a trash bag for, things that are ruined. So you're always going to have some organizing supplies, as I call it. So to do a junk drawer, here's what I think you need. I think you need a timer, 10 minutes. I think you need a bowl of warm, sudsy water. I'll tell you about that. I think you need an old sheet or towel. And you also need a recycle bin and a trash bin next to you. So I'm going to give you some grace here. Before you set the timer, push everything away on the countertop above the drawer and lay down the old sheet or towel. On that old sheet or towel, put the bowl of warm, sudsy water. Put the trash and recycle bin next to you. Open the drawer and dump it out on the sheet or towel. Then set the timer. You've got 10 minutes. 10 minutes, you start sorting. You're going to come across keys and coins. Those are going to go into the warm, sudsy water. They're disgusting and sticky. Don't leave your workstation to try the keys. Just stick them in the water. You're going to come across all kinds of things. Bed Bath & Beyond coupons that were shoved in the back of the drawer. Nobody's using them anymore, although Bed Bath & Beyond is now taking coupons. I think in Nebraska. And I'm like, all of those clients said, see, I knew I shouldn't have thrown those away. Sort. The timer goes off. 10 minutes has passed. That is the best news of the day. You can't get any better information than that, because you have just learned that it's going to take you longer than 10 minutes to do the next junk drawer. You're going to be curious about why it took longer than you thought. And if you're able to block a little bit more time, finish the project. But what just happened is we created a series of SMART goals. So it was specific, the junk drawer, measurable, 10 minutes, attainable. I want to clear the junk drawer. I have 10 minutes. I even put it on the calendar. Result oriented. You became willing to let go of more stuff than you thought. Those Bed Bath & Beyond coupons, you're going to say they're never coming back to Irvine. And that you've created and you have committed time to the task. These are SMART goals, and you can do them in a very micro way, working on the junk drawer, or in a macro way, getting that garage cleared out, or in the digital way. Here are the components that you want to pay attention to. You need to give it a block of time. You're the one who's giving it the time. Not too long ago, I was in a client's home, and she had the kitchen island in her kitchen was filled with everything. It was bananas and plastic bags and electronics, a Kindle. It was just filled with everything, potatoes, basket, and piled high. And we were sitting in the dining area looking at the kitchen kitchen island. And I said, what do you see when you look at that? And she goes, I'm disgusted. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? And I said, well, what is it about it that you haven't tried it? And she said, I look at that and I think that's going to take forever. And I said, give it 15 minutes. You assign the time. It doesn't have a brain. You can't anthropomorphize the pile. It's as if the pile is telling you how long it's going to take. You tell the pile, it takes as long as I want to put into it. And lo and behold, it happened for her very, very quickly. We all are going to want to take some baby steps after this call, and I encourage you and applaud you. Think about SMART goals. Think about how to prioritize. Prioritization is pretty tricky. When we walk into really crowded and cluttered spaces, it's like, well, where do we start? And we either start in the place where we think it's going to be more emotionally laden, and I just want to get this over with, because we could sit down on the floor of a bedroom with a client and pull the next thing out from under the bed, and it's a box of trauma. It's love letters from a deceased girlfriend. I mean, we're holding on to some heavy stuff, not just too many pairs of socks, So we go into a place where it feels really heavy and I just want to get it over with, or the junk drawer, a place that's very benign. Let's just see how this process works. And so those are some of the questions that you want to ask yourself. You can go to the next slide, please, Dr. Jihan.
Dr. Lark, I have a comment.
Yes.
one of our viewers. So I'm going to show that to you in two pieces because I cannot put everything in one screen. So one of our viewers from LinkedIn wrote this. I would like you please to read it.
Uh,
To
yes.
this
To
slide, I
this
would like
slide,
you.
on the SMART goals, I would add the importance and need for agility, being flexible and adaptable when something doesn't work as planned. It is essential for achieving the goals highlighted here.
For identifying.
Tasks that can lead us to absolutely, yes. Flexibility tends to not be in our nature. When we have chronic disorganization, we tend to have I call it the twin evils of perfectionism and procrastination. But yes, if you can be flexible, it's that thought of, if I let this thing go, I don't know when I'm going to need it. I haven't identified how it's going to happen in my life again. But if I let this go, can I be flexible enough to come up with an alternate solution? Can I borrow it from somebody? Is the item at a price point that isn't going to break the bank to replace it? But it'll be nice to not have that as clutter for the next 5 years. So yeah, flexibility is important.
So I have one more question. I would like to bring this up from YouTube.
Step 1, understand root cause of the brain. Step 2, to be determined. Step 3, implement practical solutions. What's step 2 to bridge 1 to 2? Give me a moment. Well, step 2 is, once you understand the root causes of the brain, I would look at what you've learned and then identify the threads or the strains where you're feeling challenged. So is the bigger problem time in your relationship with time? Is the bigger problem the emotional boundaries that you have or don't have? I would do a little bit more focus, because then what was number 3? Can you put that back up? And then implement. So what is it that you need to implement?
Perfect. Wonderful. We can continue, and then as the questions come, I will bring them up.
Yeah, well, I'm about done. I mean, I would love to open this up. If you look at the last slide, I have a little exercise. Given what you've learned today, what is the task that you plan to take on, and when do you plan to do it? Because it's really important to get it on the calendar.
Wonderful. Dr. Lark, I have another interesting question. Let me just bring this up.
Does our brain distinguish between physical and digital clutter? A full inbox and 100 open tabs have the same negative impact on our focus. I would imagine that the individual needs to answer that question. I see a full inbox and 100 open tabs has a lot to do with probably a terrible relationship with time. It's managing the time to go through the emails, coming up with criteria. So yeah, I see that I don't know what you mean by our brain distinguish. I think whatever your form of clutter is, whether it be physical or digital or emotional, I see emotional clutter is folks that are really so empathetic and they do so much for other people. They just give of their heart, and they just don't have anything left for themselves. I don't know if that's emotional clutter, but clutter is it's how it makes you feel. It's how you feel around your stuff. Your clutter can't make you feel anything, but it's your perspective of what's here. And how do I feel when I see this? How do I feel when I see a very full inbox or tabs open all over my desktop? I once walked into, this is this was really interesting for me. When I first started my company, I had I was a Groupon special. So I was doing my work. I was doing 2 hours of work for like $15. And I booked a lot of appointments, as you can imagine. And I thought it was great. I learned my chops. I learned how to sell up. It was not a moment was wasted. And I did a lot of them. And it was like going to school. And I got a Groupon call from this woman in Manhattan Beach. And I walked into her home. And my very first thought was, what did she bring me here for? I was just like, I couldn't figure it out. And she's talking, and, you know, we're looking at her home, and it was lovely. And it was beautifully appointed, not a speck of clutter or dust. And we get to the top of a staircase. The bedrooms were downstairs. We get to the staircase, and she pauses and she takes a breath and she puts her hand on the wall and she goes, okay, welcome to my nightmare. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And she opened a door to what was like a guest room. And in the middle of the floor was what I would call a very benign pile of stuff. It was notebooks and binders. It was some books. It was some shoes. It was just a benign pile of stuff, mostly in the office supply. As I think about it, she was mortified because she didn't know what to do with everything. And rather than say, "Oh, come on, this isn't clutter," I said, all right. So this is what's bothering you. All right, well, let's sit down and get to work. Because her relationship to those items in space, that to her was physical clutter. It made her feel awful and ashamed.
Wonderful. We have 2 more questions. Let's see, in the last 5 minutes that we have left, that we can fit this. I would like to bring this up. One of our viewers have asked.
Great. For someone who feels completely paralyzed by their clutter, what is the single smallest, most effective first step to break that logjam? 2 things come to mind. 1, dial a friend. I don't know if you've had somebody come over to help you. I don't know if you've spoken with anybody about this. Most people I know who have clutter have friends with clutter. And I encourage coming clean with it. It's not who we are. It's how our brain is wired, and it's the stuff. It's just the stuff. It's not about who you are. The paralysis is real. So I would see who I can get to support me. I would also put on your calendar and just work on a junk drawer and just see what happens to you. Just work on one thing that, again, find the thing that you think may not hold a lot of emotional response. And that if you were to step aside, I don't know what works for you to step aside from the paralysis. That's not something I have experienced, and I'm not a clinician, so I don't know what strategies you've used, but whatever strategy to see if you can step aside from that. I don't know what other words to use. And step up to a junk drawer and even just pull it open and just see what you see. Just see what you see. You don't have to make any decision. And if you want, just close it really quick. And then see what it took to get you to that point. That's why I think a kind and loving and understanding friend, and then reciprocate, help them get out of their paralysis. There's a lot of reasons why we don't activate on our desire to declutter.
Wonderful. In the last few more minutes left, Dr. Lark, here's the last question that one of
Whoa.
our.
Got it. So what's the advice for handling clutter when you live with someone like our partner or family who has completely different mess threshold? Okay. I would work with a good a relationship coach or psychotherapist and come up with the plan for the common areas that need to stay clear. What are the common areas? Is it the bathroom, the living room, and the kitchen? You've got to have some common areas that are acceptable to the person with the different threshold. You've got to. That's what love is about. That's what relationships are about. This is what I'm saying, our relationship to our stuff and our space and ourselves and the people that we live with. We've got to come to that. And if we need a third party, take advantage of whatever help is available. But out of respect and out of love, you've got to come up with an agreement on the common areas that will stay clear. And then the ways in which those are going to be maintained by the person who is, there's got to be a plan for maintenance by the person who tends toward the clutter, not the person who is neater. Because they've been trying to neaten you up for a long, long time. And you've got to take responsibility for it. I draw a hard line on that.
Wonderful. What a perfect timing. Dr. Lark, thank you so much for this insightful discussion with us.
I hope everybody found it. I hope some people found it useful. It's not a typical NBA conversation, but an important one nonetheless.
It is very important, and I can understand that our viewers, our students loved it because of the interaction, the questions that they ask. Right. And please be reminded that this is live stream right now, but it will be available on Virscend University YouTube channel. So there might be some questions later. People will be, I'm sure that they will be watching this, and if they do come, and then we'll definitely pass them to you.
I would love to, I'm available to everybody, and I know you can put my website and contact info on your show notes.
Wonderful. We will do that. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. It was a lovely meeting you in that chance room, and then here we are. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you to our viewers. We'll see you in our next speaker series. Thank you.
Bye-bye.